What are some complications and barriers to implementation that you've seen that might not be so obvious to marketers? I'm sure a lot of our listeners have bubbled up a few obvious barriers to the implementation, but what are some things that you've seen that have kind of thrown you a little bit for a loop?
So one thing that I see happening a lot is that these things take a little bit of time, right?
Hmm.
A complex change process, and it's again, let's not over let's not build the fear factor up too much, but it is more complicated than just doing a fairly simple sort of change in sort of like a ad campaign or something like that, right? Or
Hmm.
tweaking a search campaign. So these things take a little bit of time. The fastest I would see some of that change happening is 6 months. It can also take 18, right? Depending on
Hmm.
scope and scale and how many markets or how many brands or et cetera, right? And so that will determine the time it takes. 18 months or even 12 months in marketing land is an enormous amount of time, right?
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you're still with the same CMO
You
and
do.
some of the same brand managers, but maybe not, right? And that
Hmm.
can happen fairly quickly. What we've often seen is that time that it takes, the length of time that it takes, can work against the implementation of the plan because people in marketing, especially, they live on sort of very short sort of timelines. So
Oh, yeah.
making sure that an organization understands we're going to have to sort of stay the course a little bit and make sure that no matter what happens, we do this thing is one of those things that makes it challenging. And I've seen it sort of go wrong on that point because changing the organization in terms of personnel and then sort of appetite changes or the new person coming in has new ideas about it and that can the problems are still usually the same, right? I mean, if there's a new
Hmm.
CMO or a new senior vice president of brand category XYZ, doesn't make the problem go away. It just means that somebody else now leads the quest to sort of address it. But anyway, so that's one area. I think a second area that I find, and I referred to it briefly earlier, is that sometimes your own metrics or your own way of measuring success as an organization stands in the way of bringing the change that you tell yourself you want, right? I gave the very simplistic example that, for instance, if in media or in creative production, your goal is to always get it at the lowest cost, right? Your agency
Hmm.
partners will be aware of that, right? And they might even be incentivized on that, right? In their agency evaluation or in their bonus structure, you might incentivize them or your own people on delivering at the lowest cost. And then if you're at the same time, if your marketing problem is all about brand awareness or brand reputation or whatever, well, that has very little to do with lowest cost. It may
Yeah.
be it may be supported by something that is cost efficient, but cost efficient
Hmm.
is not necessarily lowest cost. If
Right.
you incentivize whatever part of the infrastructure is on lowest cost, guess what? They'll chase the lowest cost first before they
Yeah.
do anything else, right? And that can work against you. So it is really important to figure out, well, how do you make sure that your organization is sort of pursuing the things that you say are important to you and is recognized for doing that so that they feel like, okay, there's incentive and there's reason to pursue those changes because it will help me to be recognized as a productive member of the team. Those are two things that we see a lot as a challenge, and then there's all sorts of other sort of more practical challenges which I alluded to, right? If the organizational structure is really kind of either bloated or out of shape or whatever, sometimes organizations have difficulty right sizing or restructuring that because loyalties, because
Hmm.
fear of the unknown. There's a number of it, but that can get in the way as well. So if you need to do something fairly dramatic in either internal structure and therefore people's roles, right? We're talking about human beings,
Yeah.
that can get in the way as well.